It's been a while since I've done any work on this Supercut C70, so I figured today would be a good opportunity to get back into it. In the last one, you saw me paint all this stuff, and then it's been about a month or so since I shot a video on it. The thing is I actually had the fork and the swing arm fall off my lift, my motorcycle lift, and bounce on the concrete. So I had to actually sand those and repaint them again. But anyways, that's all done. So what I'm doing here today is I'm going to quickly finish up spraying these black pieces. So I did all these on one side about 3 or 4 days ago now. So I'm just going to flip them all over because this is all nice and dry. Get the other sides done. And with that done, I'm then ready to start piecing this thing back together slowly. So I do have a lot of parts that I still have to order, but I should be able to get things done, like get the forks installed in the frame, get the swing arm installed in the frame, a few other things along those lines. So I've got a nice coat of black paint on this stuff here. So it's like the rear brake light, tail light, and plate holder. This is the thing that the bar is attached to, and top of the fork is what holds the headset together, we'll say. Our blinker stocks for the front, our foot pegs, pieces for the foot pegs, kickstand, and our actual peg mounts themselves goes onto the bottom of the motor. All done. Let's turn our attention to, zoom you guys out right quick here. Pull all this gear back. The frame here. So yeah, like I mentioned, I had dropped the forks, which are over here, and I did quite a number on them with paint chips and stuff, so I went ahead and sanded and repainted. So you can see now these are looking pretty good. So what we're going to do, so I'm going to start off by getting the forks mounted into the frame. I guess step one of this is going to be rebuilding the forks. So let's go ahead and get a spot cleaned off on the bench, and we'll go ahead and we'll get these forks rebuilt. So here we have our fork, our shocks, and the hardware for mounting the shocks inside the fork. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to set the fork aside for a moment. I'm going to take these apart, get them cleaned up. We'll clean up a bit of our hardware, and then we'll go ahead and we'll start putting this stuff inside these forks. So let's get these apart. So I've got one mostly cleaned up at this point. I'm half tempted to, get this autofocus back on. I'm half tempted to completely take these the rest of the way apart, so I push out this inner bushing, or even just tape it up and tape up the grease nipple here, and then get these bends taken out of these caps and take these off as well. And just put these in the blaster just to see what it turns out like. So I think what I'm going to do is pop those off, see how much of a dick around that's going to be, tape up everything, and hit them in the blaster just to see how that goes. I think I can get them a lot cleaner that way. And once I get them to that point, I may even paint them with that nice silver paint that I've been using on the XL and stuff. So if I just swing you guys around, you're not going to see it because it's lit pretty poorly there, but the same silver that these components here are done in, like the tops of the shocks there, the side covers and whatnot. So I'm going to step away. We'll pop these covers off this part, and we'll see about popping them in the sandblaster quick just to see how it turns out. So just for a quick before and after now, before I blast the second one, here's what before looks like. This is just where I had it brushed with the brass bristle brush and some brake cleaner, and here it is after some sandblasted. So I'm definitely going to paint these that silver color. So I'm going to take this one, set it back over on the lift. We'll pop this one into the sandblaster, get this one cleaned up, and then we'll look at putting a lick of paint on them. So I've got the suspension arms cleaned up using the blaster. I'm now going to go ahead and give these a quick shot with that silver paint. We'll let them dry, and then while those are drying, we'll turn our attention to cleaning up the actual shocks themselves. So here we have the result of just cleaning these up quickly in the sandblaster and hitting them with a bit of that silver paint. So focus, there you go, so you can see things are nice and silver now, looking really, really nice. So that's one. And here is the other. Same thing. Just a nice coat of silver paint on that, so that's going to look really nice. Now half of this is up inside the fork leg anyways, and then with regard to the shocks, they're completely up inside. You won't even see those, but we're going to give those a quick clean up now anyways while these parts are drying, and then once we've got the shocks themselves cleaned up, we're going to go ahead and get this all mounted back up inside the fork legs. So let's give these things a little scrub. So once again, just a quick before and after. So here's the before. Focus, please. You can see, the spring and whatnot is a bit dirty and grungy. There's grunge on the inside of the clevis there. And here you go after just a quick cleanup with some brake clean, bit of naphtha. So it's looking nice now. So what I'll do is I'll go away, get this one done, then we'll have a look at starting putting this stuff back together. So while those suspension arms continue to dry a bit more, so they're to the point where I'm all right to handle them and not leave them full of fingerprints because the paint's so mushy, I'm just going to go ahead and clean up all this hardware here now. So I've got the hardware that goes into the suspension arms themselves here, and I also got a bunch of the shock hardware that I need to put the stuff back together. One thing I noticed is that these little felt rings, 3 out of 4 of them are good. Actually, there's even more than that. There's like 6 of them total, maybe 8 of them total. One of them was disintegrated on one side of one of these outer caps, but I think I can get away without putting it back in. I know I should order one or whatever, but I'm just not going to wait for that to happen. I might be able to substitute something else in, so we'll see how it goes. Like I've got some rubber O-rings here. I could probably stick a rubber O-ring around it and it'll be all right. But in the meantime, like I said, I'm just going to give all this stuff a clean up now with a bit of brake clean, maybe some naphtha. We'll get it all wiped down and cleaned up and ready to put back together. So, let's get down to it. Those are nice and dry now, so I can touch those without repercussion. So just need to pull the tape off of these guys and start reassembling. So here we go. So that's the right shock absorber put back inside the fork. I'm going to go ahead and do the left side now as well, and I'll bring you back when I get it done. So here's our rebuilt fork. I went ahead and put the 3D printed plugs in that my buddy Mark did for me. Their suspension arms and shocks and whatnot are all back in now, so this is good to go back up into the frame. I'm not going to bother putting on any of these guards and stuff like that yet, because that stuff will go on during final assembly. But for the time being, we should be ready to take our headset parts, put them back into the head of the frame, and then go ahead and get the forks mounted to the frame. So let's have a look at doing that. So I've got the inner races pushed in. It was a big fail on the little race puller I've made, so I just knocked them in with a screwdriver. Things are all right. Minor paint damage that'll be hidden by all the stuff that's clamped around this anyways. So, oil seal, but I guess bottom seal for the steer tube here goes on like so. Then our bottom race goes on next. Should just slide on. Just slid off. This is going to fight me today because I'm in a pissy mood. Guaranteed. Okay, so it's all slipped together. Now, as you can see, I'll bring this closer so you can see it better. But essentially you'll see how, that bottom black seal goes around the other side of this race. So now, at this point, I should be ready to take half of my bearings and get them stuck up in here with a lot of grease and slide this up in and press against them and keep them in place. So one more quick look, you can see our top lock washer or lock nut is snugged up to the point where there's no play laterally, front, back, whatever, and this is nice and smooth. So unfortunately at this point, for the reassembly process, when you're putting the top bridge back on top of the fork stem here, it calls for, first a couple pieces and then your front handlebar plastic goes on. Now mine is broken and this is one of the pieces that I have to fix. So I think for the time being, I'm just going to leave this as is. We're going to go ahead and get the swing arm on and then we'll just put both wheels on so we can stand the Super Cub up on the motorcycle stand itself. So, that being said, I'm going to put these parts aside for the time being, and we're going to go ahead and get the swing arm on. So, let's take a look at doing that. So here we got our rear axle hardware for the time being. Have a look at our swing arm hardware. So I'm looking at the swing arm pivot. I'm going to give this a quick clean up on the wire wheel because it's a bit rough. Then we've just got plugs, chain guard, so I can give it a quick clean up as well. Some various hardware like brake loose and stuff. So I'll give this all a quick clean up, we'll come back and we'll get this put together. So I went ahead and put the bolt or the swing arm. So the swing arm's in, it's nice, you know, it'll do its swing arm thing. It swings as an arm, we'll say. But now the thing is I need to mount these pieces on because these go on next. And my dilemma here is these aren't cleaned up. Now I thought I was going to be able to just clean this up by hitting it with a bit of brake cleaner. But unfortunately there's surface rust. So these things are going to have to be cleaned. You know, I'm going to blast and paint this. So with that, we're going to have to call it on this one. We've still got a bit of work to do with regard to cleaning up some of these parts. We're going to want to blast, prime, and paint those so they're looking pristine when we put this back together. We're not doing all this work just to put back together a mediocre product. I want to make sure this thing looks pretty much as nice as when it came out of the factory. So, you know, that means getting these parts cleaned up and looking OEM. Especially if we're going to be doing things like putting on this brand new muffler that I got. And when we get to that, I'll show you where that came from via eBay and whatnot. But I mean, you can't have something like this going on there and then this radial muffler mount to screw it onto. That's just yeah, we're not going to do that. We want to do this right the first time. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for watching. In the next one, we'll be getting these parts cleaned up. We'll start getting this baby back together. Start focusing on some things like fixing some of our plastics, getting the shin guard ordered so we can get that. There's a pile of work to come. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.